सत्करतार दोस्तों, वाहिगुरू जी का खालसा, वाहिगुरू जी की फतेह, नमस्कार, अस्सलाम वालेकुम, a very good evening to you all. Buonasera Italiana, Italia, not Italia. I'll get to speak to Giordano in a moment. I'll first start my introductions in Punjabi and then come to English. ਸੋ ਦੋਸਤੋ ਤੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਜਾਨੀ ਦੁਸ਼ਮਣੋ, ਜੀ ਆਇਆਂ ਨੂੰ 198ਵਾਂ ਮੇਲਾ ਹੈਗਾ, ਦੂਜੇ ਸੀਜ਼ਨ ਦਾ 37ਵਾਂ ਐਪੀਸੋਡ ਹੈਗਾ। ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਸ਼ੁਭਕਾਮਨਾਵਾਂ ਵੀ ਦਿੰਦਾ। ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਬੜੀ ਔਖੀ ਘੜੀ ਹੈ ਵਤਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੋ ਇੱਥੇ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਔਰ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੁਲਾਕਾਤ ਹੈ, ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਰੋਮ ਵਾਪਸ ਚੱਲਾਂਗੇ। ਮੈਂ ਰੋਮ 'ਚ ਹੀ ਫਸਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਸਾਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਸਾਲ ਲੋਕਡਾਊਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਸੜਕਾਂ ਕਦੇ 24 ਘੰਟੇ ਜਿਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਸਾਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਸੁਣੀਆਂ ਮੈਂ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਵਾਰ ਦੇਖੀਆਂ ਸਨ ਆਪਣੇ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਸਾਲ ਮੈਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਰਿਹਾ, ਦਹਾਕੇ ਗੁਜ਼ਰ ਗਏ ਨੇ। ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੁਲਾਕਾਤ ਹੈ ਉਹ Giordano Antonelli ਨਾਲ ਹੈ, ਜੋ ਕਿ ਬਰੋਕ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਚੈਲੋ ਵਰਤਿਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਉਹ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਹਨਗੇ। ਮੇਰੀ ਮੁਲਾਕਾਤ ਕੁਛ ਚਿਰ ਹੋਇਆ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਹੋਈ, ਮਤਲਬ ਚਿਰ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਮੈਂ ਕਈ ਲਾਈਵ ਪਰਫੋਰਮੈਂਸਿਸ ਵੀ ਦੇਖੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਅਤੇ ਬੜੇ ਅੱਛੇ ਥਾਵਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਇਟਲੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਅਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਬੜੀ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਮੈਂ ਅੱਜ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰ ਸਕਾਂਗਾ। ਅੱਜ ਉਹ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਾਡੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬੈਠਕ ਹੈ ਉਹ 2 ਹਿੱਸਿਆਂ 'ਚ ਵੰਡੀ ਜਾਏਗੀ। ਅੱਜ ਵਾਰਤਾ ਹੋਏਗੀ ਔਰ ਕੁਝ ਦਿਨਾਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਾਜ਼ਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਹੋਣਗੇ, ਕੁਝ ਉਹ ਸਾਜ਼ਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਅੱਜ 2 ਵੀਡੀਓਜ਼ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਂਝੇ ਕੀਤੇ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਵਿਖਾਵਾਂਗੇ। ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਫੇਸਬੁੱਕ ਜਾਂ YouTube ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਉਹ ਆਲਰੇਡੀ ਅਵੇਲੇਬਲ ਨੇ, ਪਰ ਇਸ ਸੰਦਰਭ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਦੋਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਵੀਡੀਓਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੋ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਚਰਚਾ ਵੀ ਕਰ ਸਕਾਂਗੇ। ਇਹ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਵਖੇਵਾਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆਮ ਤੌਰ 'ਤੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੇ ਚੈਨਲ 'ਤੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਦੇਖਣ ਨਾਲੋਂ, ਕਿ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਇੱਕ ਸੁਭਾਗ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਜੋ ਵਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ, ਜੋ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ, ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਚਰਚਾ ਵੀ ਕਰ ਸਕਾਂਗੇ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪੇਜ ਹੈਗਾ ਫੇਸਬੁੱਕ 'ਤੇ, YouTube 'ਤੇ ਸਬਸਕ੍ਰਾਈਬ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਕਰਨਾ। ਪੈਟਰੀਅਨ 'ਤੇ ਹੈਗਾ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਅਨਾਥ ਫਾਊਂਡੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਾਡਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਿਰਸਾ ਹੈ ਉਹਦੀ ਭਾਲ ਸੰਭਾਲ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਾਰਜ ਪਿਛਲੇ 37 ਵਰ੍ਹਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਮੈਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ 40 ਵਰ੍ਹੇ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਤੁਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ, 37 ਵਰ੍ਹੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਮੇਰੀ ਕਹਾਣੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋਈ ਸੀ ਔਰ 31 ਵਰ੍ਹੇ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਪੂਰੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਡੈਡੀਕੇਟਡ ਹੈਗਾ। ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਇਹ ਸਾਧਨ ਨੇ ਟੈਕਨੋਲੋਜੀ ਦੇ ਅਤੇ ਲੋਕਡਾਊਨ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਨ ਕਿ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ 'ਚ ਕਿਤੇ ਵੀ ਬੈਠਾ ਬੰਦਾ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਉਹ ਤਿਲ ਪਾਵੇ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਫੁੱਲ ਪਾਵੇ, ਉਹ ਹਿੱਸੇਦਾਰ ਬਣ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਇੱਕ ਜ਼ਿੰਮੇਵਾਰਾਨਾ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਤਾਬੀਅਤ ਹੈ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਣੇ ਵਿਰਸੇ ਦੀ ਭਾਲ ਸੰਭਾਲ ਕਰ ਸਕਦਾ, ਉਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਸ਼ਰੀਕ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ। ਅੱਗੇ ਸੰਭਾਵਨਾਵਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ ਸਨ, ਅੱਜ ਇਹ ਵੇਲਾ ਹੈਗਾ। ਠੀਕ ਹੈ, ਵਰਤਮਾਨ ਸਥਿਤੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਸਪਤਾਲਾਂ ਦਾ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨਾ, ਲੰਗਰ ਛਕਾਉਣਾ ਆਵਾਮ ਨੂੰ, ਉਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ। ਪਰ ਉਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹਾਫਿਜ਼ ਹੈਗੇ ਵਿਦਿਆਵਾਂ ਦੇ, ਅਸੀਂ ਉਨੇ ਹੀ ਸਤਰਕ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਵਿਦਿਆਵਾਂ ਅੱਜ ਹਨਗੀਆਂ ਉਹ ਆਉਣ ਦੇ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਤੱਕ ਅਸੀਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਜਾ ਸਕੀਏ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਮੇਵਾਰੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਕੋਈ ਵਿਪਤਾ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੀ ਬਖਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਅਸੀਂ ਅਗਲੀ ਪੀੜ੍ਹੀ ਤੱਕ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਮਹਿਫੂਜ਼ ਰੱਖਣੀ ਹੈ, ਇਹ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡਾ ਕਾਰਜ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਨਾ ਹੋਏ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਕੰਮ ਛੱਡ ਕੇ ਸਿਰਫ ਬਾਕੀ ਕੰਮ ਹੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹੀਏ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਿਰਫ ਵਰਤਮਾਨ ਕਾਲ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਹਨਗੇ, ਭਵਿੱਖ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ, ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿਤੇ ਮੁਨਕਰ ਨਾ ਹੋ ਜਾਈਏ। ਥੋੜ੍ਹੀ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਕਿ ਅਕਲੀ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਸੇ ਵੀ ਅਕਲੀ ਕੀਜੈ ਦਾਨ, ਇਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ। Giordano Antonelli ਦੇ ਬਾਬਤ ਮੈਂ 2 ਗੱਲਾਂ ਦੱਸ ਦਿਆਂ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਰੋਮ ਦੇ ਹੀ ਵਸਨੀਕ ਹਨਗੇ। ਰਸ਼ੀਆ ਦੇ ਇਵਾਨ ਮੋਨੀਗੈਤੀ ਦੇ ਕੋਲੋਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਸਿੱਖਿਆ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਹਾਸਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ, ਮਾਸਟਰਸ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੀਤੀ, ਔਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ अर्ਲੀ ਮਿਊਜ਼ਿਕ ਕਹਿਲਾਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਬਾਰੋਕ ਅਤੇ ਈਰਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ, ਯਾਨੀ ਕਿ ਕਈ ਸ਼ਤਾਬਦੀਆਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੰਗੀਤ, ਜੇ ਮੈਂ ਸਰਲ ਵਿਅੰਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਸਕਾਂ, ਉਹਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਪੜ੍ਹਾਈ ਕੀਤੀ। ਸਕੋਲਾ ਕੈਂਟੋਰਮ ਬੈਸਿਲੀਐਂਸਿਸ ਥਾਂ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਪੜ੍ਹੇ ਨੇ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕ੍ਰਿਸਟੋਫਰ ਕੋਇਨ ਦੇ ਅਧੀਨ ਵੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਪੜ੍ਹਾਈ ਕੀਤੀ। ਅੰਤੋਨੈਲੀ ਨੇ ਫਿਰ ਗੁਸਤਾਵ ਮਾਲਰ ਜੁਗੈਂਡ ਆਰਕੈਸਟਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆਰਕੈਸਟਰਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਪਾਇਆ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਜੁਆਇਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਔਰ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਫਿਰ ਪ੍ਰਾਗ ਮੋਜ਼ਾਰਟ ਅਕੈਡਮੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। 1994 ਤੋਂ ਹੁਣ ਤੱਕ ਇਹ ਏਕਲ ਵਾਦਨ ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਇੱਕ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਲੀਡਰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ, ਪਰ ਉਹ ਭਾਵ ਕਿ ਆਰਕੈਸਟਰਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਇੱਕ ਸੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਉਹਦੇ ਮੁਖੀ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਔਰ ਵੱਡੇ ਮਿਊਜ਼ਿਕ ਫੈਸਟੀਵਲਸ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਯੂਰਪ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਉਹਨਾਂ 'ਚ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਪਰਫਾਰਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈਗਾ। ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਡਾਇਰੈਕਟਰਸ ਨੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈਗਾ, ਉਹ ਕ੍ਰਿਸਟੋਫਰ ਹੌਗਵੁੱਡ, ਫਿਲਿਪ ਹੈਰਵੇਗ ਕਰਕੇ, ਫਾਬੀਓ ਬਿਯੋਂਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ, ਜੋਵਾਨੀ ਐਂਟੋਨੀਨੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਔਰ ਜੋਵਾਨੀ ਆਚਿਆਈ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਾ। ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਅੱਖਰ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਵਾਰ ਪੜ੍ਹਿਆ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਆਚਿਆਈ ਦਾ। ਆਚਿਆਈ, how do you say it, Giordano? Giovanni?
Yes.
Acciai.
Giovanni. Acciai.
Acciai. Okay, thank you for that. And 2000 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣਾ ensemble ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤਾ, ਆਪਣਾ ਆਰਕੈਸਟਰਾ Musica Antiqua Latina, ਔਰ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਇਟਾਲੀਅਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬਾਰੋਕ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਰੈਪਰਟੋਰ ਹੈਗਾ, ਉਹਦੀ ਉਹਦੀ ਸਮੱਗਰੀ ਹੈ, ਉਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਕਹੀਏ ਕਿ ਉੱਥੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਾ। ਔਰ ਇਹ ਚਿੰਤਕ ਨੇ ਪੁਰਾਣੇ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਬਾਰੇ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਮੇਵਾਰਾਨਾ ਤਾਬੀਅਤ ਹੈ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਅਟੈਂਡੈਂਸ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਜਿਹਦੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਮੈਂ ਕਾਫੀ ਚਿਰ ਤੋਂ ਇੱਛਾਵਾਨ ਸਾਂ ਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਵਾਰਤਾ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਕਰੀਏ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਈ ਪੁਰਾਣੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮਾਸਟਰ ਵਰਕ ਸਨਗੇ, ਭੁੱਲੇ ਵਿਸਰੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋਕ ਭੁਲਾ ਬੈਠੇ ਸੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੱਢਿਆ ਹੈ। ਤਕਰੀਬਨ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਕਬਰਾਂ ਖੋਲ੍ਹਦਾ ਰਹਿੰਦਾ, ਫਰੋਲਦਾ ਰਹਿੰਦਾ, ਖੰਡਰ ਫਰੋਲਦਾ ਰਹਿੰਦਾ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਉਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਤਾਬੀਅਤ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਇਹ ਪੰਜ ਤਾਰਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਿਓਲਨਚੈਲੋ ਪਿਕੋਲੋ ਹੈਗਾ, ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਖਾਸ ਸਨੇਹ ਹੈ, ਉਸ ਸਾਜ਼ ਬਾਬਤ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਖਾਸ ਸਨੇਹ ਹੈਗਾ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਇਨਫੈਕਟ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਸਾਜ਼ ਹੈਗਾ, ਉਹ 1760 ਦਾ ਬਣਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ PA ਲਾਂਦੋਲਫੀ ਦਾ ਮਿਲਾਨ 'ਚ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬਣਿਆ ਸੀ, ਉਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਪਰਫਾਰਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ। ਅਤੇ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਦੂਜੀ ਸੀਰੀਜ਼ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ YaarAnād ਵਰਚੁਅਲ ਬੈਠਕ ਦੀ, ਇਹ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਤੇਗ ਬਹਾਦਰ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਨੂੰ ਸਮਰਪਿਤ ਹੈ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸ਼ਹਾਦਤ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ 'ਚ ਲਾਸਾਨੀ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਅਦੁੱਤੀय ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਮ ਤੌਰ 'ਤੇ ਸ਼ਹਾਦਤਾਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਮੰਤਵ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਆਪਣੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਧੜੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਬੰਦਾ ਜੂਝਦਾ ਹੈ, ਲੜਦਾ ਮਰਦਾ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਨੇ ਤਾਂ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਹ ਪੂਰੇ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਕਹੀਏ ਵਿਸ਼ਵ ਭਰ ਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀ ਮਿਸਾਲ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿਤੇ ਬੈਠਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਬੰਦਾ, ਉਹ ਆਪਣਾ ਮਾਰਗ ਚੁਣ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਬੇਖੌਫ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੀ ਰਹਿਨੁਮਾਈ, ਯਾਨੀ ਕਿ ਗੁਰੂ ਤੇਗ ਬਹਾਦਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੀ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਪ੍ਰੋਟੈਕਸ਼ਨ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਹਿਫਾਜ਼ਤ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਚਾਦਰ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਕਹੀਏ ਦੇ ਅਧੀਨ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਛਤਰ ਛਾਇਆ ਹੈ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਬੇਖੌਫ ਉਸ ਚੁਣੇ ਹੋਏ ਮਾਰਗ 'ਤੇ ਕਦਮ ਧਰ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦਾ ਤਾਂ ਮੇਰਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇੱਕ ਭਾਵੁਕ ਨਜ਼ਰੀਆ, ਜੇ ਮੈਂ ਜਾਂ ਉਸ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਦੇਖਾਂ, ਜੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਂਝਾ ਕਰ ਸਕਾਂ ਕਿ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਪਖਾਵਜ ਵੀ ਵਜਾਉਂਦੇ ਸਨ, ਅਤੇ ਕਵਿਤਾ ਔਰ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦੀ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਉਹ ਵਿਦਵਾਨ ਸਨ, ਉਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ 'ਚ ਮਿਸਾਲ ਆਪ ਹੈ। ਗਾਉਂਦੇ ਵੀ ਸਨ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ, ਔਰ ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਰਾਗ ਜੈਜਵੰਤੀ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕੰਟਰੀਬਿਊਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ, ਇਹ ਗੁਰੂ ਤੇਗ ਬਹਾਦਰ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਨੂੰ ਦਾ ਹੀ ਸ਼੍ਰੇ ਮੰਨਿਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਪ੍ਰਮਾਣ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਇਸ ਰਾਗ ਦੇ ਗਾਵਿਆਂ ਦਾ। So friends, welcome to you all to the 198th Mēlā, I beg your pardon, the second season, which is dedicated to the 9th Sikh Guru, Guru Tegh Bahadur, who gave his life to guard the Hindu tilak and Janevu. He sacrificed his life. In fact, he's very unique. We talk of martyrs, but he was one martyr who gave his life to protect a faith he did not even practice, the Hindu dharma. He embodied a fearless commitment to the freedom to choose and practice one's own faith. On an intimate note, as I'm fond of stating, that he was a prolific 𝗕𝗶𝗊 exponent, my predecessor in the tradition that I represent, and I am responsible of. He was a poet and a singer. Musical contributions include Rag Jajavanti. Today, I'm going to be in conversation with Giordano Antonelli, who's a Baroque cellist based in Rome. After training under Russia's Ivan Monighetti, he completed a master's in early music interpretation and Baroque cello at the Schola Cantorum Basiliensis, studying with Christopher Hogwood. Antonelli joined the Gustav Mahler Jugend Orchester and the following year, the Prague Mozart Academy. Since '94, he has appeared regularly as a soloist, section leader, and continuo in music festivals across Europe. Antonelli has performed with directors including Christopher Hogwood, Philippe Herreweghe, Fabio Biondi, Giovanni Antonini, and Giovanni Acciai. In 2000, Antonelli founded the ensemble Musica Antiqua Latina, which presents early Italian Baroque repertoire grounded in archival scholarship. I had the opportunity to, sort of listen to him in some very beautiful locations in Italy. Antonelli has unearthed forgotten masterworks of the Baroque era through his love for the five-string violoncello piccolo. Unfortunately, because he's in a friend's house today, but I've requested him, we'll sit another day when we'll get to look at this instrument closely. Giordano often performs on a violoncello piccolo made in 1760 by P.A. Landolfi in Milan. So friends, let's meet up with, let's start a conversation with Giordano. Giordano, welcome to the YaarAnād Virtual Baiṭhak series.
Hello, everybody. Nice to be here. Yes. Thank you for the invitation. Yes.
Pleasure. So I've been sort of wanting to be in conversation with you for quite some time, but it's just that life is so unpredictable these days.
Yeah.
I'm so glad we could meet today. As I was telling everyone, that today it's not going to be possible for us to have you play live or share the instrument and tell us the details of it. But we will meet another day for that at a mutually convenient time. Tell me about, tell us all about when you call Musica Antiqua Latina. It's not Antica, it's Antiqua, Q-U-A. Can you tell us about this? Let's begin our conversation from the name of your ensemble. Is it the dialect, the Latina dialect, or the Latin, or how is it?
It could be Latin text, because musica is the same in Latin. Antiqua is ancient in Latin, and Latina is music of the Latin world. In a way, let's say, differentiated to the German North European. At the time when I founded this ensemble, it was much on fashion the approach to early music from the Northern European culture. And so my focus was to approach early music with our deep Mediterranean and Latin roots. Let's say this approach was indeed the Latin language and all the literature connected to the Latin world was well spread all across Europe, because in any school you were obliged to study Latin, rhetoric, and philosophy from the Aristotelic world and so on. So in a sense, this is not my idea. It's Franz Bruggen, one of the great pioneers of early music, who said that the reason he didn't play music beyond Beethoven time, it was because with the French Revolution, the Latin rhetoric structure of the Western music was lost. So therefore, he didn't want to play music that was of the, let's say, modern world, because it lost this structure. So this was a long answer for a simple question, actually.
It was answers in the YaarAnād series are never long enough.
Yes.
Is sort of wanting to learn more and go deeper into the subjects that are in focus. Before we go further, can you move? I see a lot of reflection on the furniture from the back. If you can move to your right, no, the other way, the other way. Yes, this little more, your chair, little more. This is good. This is good. Yes, this is good. Just yeah.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit to your left. You're on one side. Yeah, a little bit more. That's it. That's it. That's it. Perfect. Thank you very much for that. In fact, it's better light on your face as well now. Why is it important? Why was it important for you to sort of focus on music from the Latina region?
Yeah, I mean, let's say I mean, the crucial place for all the music that we deal with is Rome, where I'm based, because much of this music and much of this culture stem from. And what I can say that my wish when I decided to dedicate myself to early music, it was before I was working regularly in a symphonic orchestra. And I remember performing all kinds of music, you know, from Bach to Brahms to, I don't know, even American music and so on. And I remember especially when performing lots of romantic music, but this is my personal feeling, is that I was kind of, after playing, let's say, a Schumann symphony, I would get tired, you know. I mean, at the spiritual level, it was taking blood and energy from me. Whereas when I'm performing, like, let's say, Handel music, or rather Corelli, or I don't know, Monteverdi or Palestrina, all the music from the ancient masters, I always feel like I am setting back myself into kind of an inner harmony, and it is nourishing my soul. So we can say this as something more ecological, let's say, which I found later even more when I experienced some of the great music from the East, from the Middle Eastern traditions and so on. So the more we go back and the more we feel like the music is speaking to the core of ourselves. And this I find very much into early Italian music, yes. So this was the reason behind.
And who are anyway? Before we go there, before we go back in time and request you to tell us about the advent of this music, how it began, which is the era, who were the early composers. I would like to share with everyone this video RV5313 um, uh, that you have shared very kindly shared with us here. Um, uh, let's listen to that first, and then you tell us about
Yes.
this piece on the other side.
Thank you.
That was fantastic. Um, before I mean, you tell us about this piece that was being performed and its sort of uniqueness and features about who the composer is and all that. I was what stood out was the three beats: 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's Dadar Chal, as we call it, or the 𝗔𝗫𝗁𝗔. Um,
Yes.
it's very interesting because the Indian music, which is at that time the singing of the pade singing, its contemporary term is 𝗕𝗶𝗿, or it's otherwise known as the 𝗕𝗶𝗿 or 𝗕𝗶𝗿. But it's the singing of the 𝗕𝗶𝗿, like one verse, two verse, triple verse, quadruple verse. It's all to do with the counting of the verses. And as the it began with a single verse, single poetic verse, single melody line. As it evolved, it grew up to four musical parts: the asthai antara sanchari abho. But the oldest, the most formidable, the most important repertoire is all in a multiple of three. So if we have, let's say, a composition in char tal, even if it's 12 beats, it is 3-3-3-3.
Yes.
So there's an idea of three within that. And old compositions, which are sort of the encyclopedic works, which are part of the pedagogy, there are the double notes. So it starts with sa sa mama papa ni dha dha pa pa. So sa sa mama papa ni dha dha pa ma ga re re ga ma ga re sa re sa. But then ni dha dha pa 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 ma ma ga re sa. So 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 like that. So there is a very extraordinary use of the very early formulations, which are like the core of music. It was very interesting to see the similarity of the use of the threes. There's a lot of music. Tell us more about it. Is it like employed quite a bit?
Well, it's no coincidence that what we just listened to, it was the third movement of Concerto by Vivaldi. And this video is from the recording of a CD all dedicated to Vivaldi, which you're very exact in when you point out the rhythmical patterns, because Vivaldi lived in Venice, and Venice had, most than any other city in all Europe, lots of exchange with the East, with Oriental musicians. This is documented, yes. Indeed, in this piece, you can hear repeating syncopation, tan 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 tan, which is very unusual for a Baroque piece of that time.
I see.
Because it would be considered completely psychotic to have so many syncopation. And this, I think, it points out to the influences that the Near East had on the Venetian musicians. Actually, this is documented that they were having lots of contact with the Turkish musicians, with the Greek musicians, and with Balkanic the Balkanic culture. So this was the effort I focus on when approaching Vivaldi's music, which is not enough I highlighted in this aspect, I think. So for me, it's very fascinating. Venice as really like it was in the time of Vivaldi. We should consider Venice a little bit like New York today, because you had the port where you had the Turks, the Greeks, the Dalmats, even from Egypt, from Crete, from Tunisia, from everywhere. You had, of course, mainly trading goods, and as we know, like textile or spices or food, whatever. So it was it's fascinating, Venice in that sense. So because for me, after so many years dealing with Bach music, Mozart music, Beethoven music, finally in the last years I started to approach as a beginner to the great heritage of East music, Oriental music. And finally, in Venice, we can sense this door gate to these two worlds, you know. So for me, it's really fascinating. So you were very correct when you made similarities to 𝗕ᵗ repertoire. Yeah, thank you.
Are there any sort of records of the Indian connection with Venice from that era? Are there anything documented? Because I have not personally had the chance to look at it, but
yes, as far as I know, I don't have knowledge about direct.
Nothing stands out as such.
Yes, but a lot. What we know is that Venetian diplomats would spend long period of times in the Ottoman Empire in Istanbul, and there already in the 17th century. And from that we have lots of documents. They transcribed lots of music from. But indeed, what you have in Vivaldi's in Vivaldi's time in Venice, they had a great love for these exotic cultures, and for instance. Vivaldi dedicated a concert which his title is The Great Mogul, which is dedicated to the great mogul of your great past.
I see.
Yes, and then he wrote Tamerlan, which is an opera where he is describing all these histories, mythological tales from those. And you have many examples, but they would imagine like a plot or you know a screenplay for this opera. And then they would use some musical melodies or theme that sounded in a way exotic, but basically they were like a complete commercial opera in the taste of the audience of Venice, you know.
No, but there is more to it, because I have checkered accounts from my learning. One is that Mia Tansen, that is the 16th century, his second best disciple is Francis from France.
Okay.
That's not a small thing. Now, Tansen is the most important musician of the Mughal Empire. And
yes,
Francis is from France, so that exchange is obviously there, and that some conversation would have happened. Number two,
yeah,
one of the Indian princes who passed away about 4 years back, Raja Mrigendra Singh, told me that there were times where the European, some orchestra from Europe would be there at the Mughal Empire. The East India Company was already here, for example, quite some time back with some of the Mughal emperors. When I think it was 1700, 1708 or 1600, 1608. Yes, is the time when the first business was established. I may be, either of them. At 1600 when it was founded, or I think it was 1600 and 1609. And then by 1630, the business started. So I don't think that's very interesting, that piece that is written may have actually been performed here. It is not just one in isolation, something there, but because of the exchanges were there, people would have, Vivaldi and others would have actually written. That may have lead us to, I think some more research needs to be done. But I have checked, accounts from during my researches that there were European orchestras that performed here, and those that performed in the 16th, 17th centuries would be Baroque era music and others. Maybe that's quite interesting.
But for me, what I think it's very interesting is a common sense that was still present in Europe much up to Vivaldi's time, which we can say, which was the modal sense of music that people had naturally in their musical ear in Italy and in Europe, which is today lost, because any student going to study at the conservatory today, even for Baroque music, they learn directly the so-called harmonic perception of music, Whereas I think that at Vivaldi's time, it was very naturally in the musical ear of people still this modal perception, because for the simple fact that any religious function in the churches were sung in the Gregorian chant, which is basically modal monodic music. So it was still very much still in use the feeling of music primarily connected to the melodic and the monodic dimension of music. And for me, this is a great lost heritage that we have to be grateful to the Oriental music, because we can still feel this incredible sensibility that in a way is lost in Western music, you know. Even, I mean, when you play, of course, there are many wonderful musicians, but when you hear playing lots of Baroque music with this kind of a vertical sense of the score of the, you know, the music, I mean, much is lost, you know. Very much of these scores are lost, because now learning from the East, when I approach to a score by a Baroque master, I immediately notice where he's using the melody in a way that is very much careful of the vocal behavior of the melody, which means you can't jump up and down, which means that you are in a narrow range of intervals, and it means that he's very aware that the melody has, for instance, going up behavior, or for instance, a descending behavior, if I'm clear what I'm saying. And I noticed that it's when you focus your look on this, then you realize that they are completely aware of what they're doing in that sense. And the beauty of the melody, it's precisely in the recognizing this, let's say, minimalistic care of the line, you know, because it's something so primal that we even lose sight of it, you know. We have it in front of our eyes, you know. Even if a piece, now I pay very much attention, if the melody starts on the tonic, or on the third, or on the fifth, or on the octave, which are the four options that you have. You have basically, you have a tonality, you have the key, and then the melody starts from, let's say, step 0, step 3, step 5, or step 8, which makes a completely peculiar taste and tension, inner tension in the material, the musical material that he's using, you know. And when I play with musicians that have not been so much aware of this, like for instance, what I'm saying is completely natural to an Indian musician, or to a Persian musician, or a Turkish musician. It's very easy to understand this. For us, it's somehow lost, you know, and I think this is a great aspect of music, that from the East we should keep going back to search for it in our repertoire. Because, as I say, Monteverdi knew perfectly about this. Handel, I found this in Handel, I found this in Monteverdi, I found this in Bach. If we look at Bach, because you know we are a little bit like distracted by the density of the harmony. But if you go to look at the very basic material that he's working on, you'll see that it's a specific scale. It has a specific melodic behavior and a specific modal ambitus, let's say, or modal range where he's working. And then it's like a cake, you know. Then he puts, you know, the cream with the harmony and the counterpoint and so on, as we all know this. But the DNA, it's very much made of very basic tones, which are, as I said, the melody and the monodic behavior of the lines, you know, because finally, even if you're listening to a symphony, you are following up a continuous melody throughout the piece. This is the human ear. You can only follow one melodic line. You think, I mean, of course, you are reacting to all the melodies all together, but basically there is in the sense, melos means exactly the singing, right? This is the basic meaning of it, you know. So for me, I have to be very grateful to the experiences I made with Oriental musicians, which are Indian music. For me, when I listen to it, I so hypnotized that I feel like it's something that I cannot put my fingers in it, because it's really very, very complex for me, you know. But I recognize that the melodic sensibility that you have in that music and the rhythmical one are way much more complex than our, because in the Western music, the rhythm is, especially in the old music, in the ancient music, it's more simple, let's say. So
the beat pattern or number of notes or beat pattern. But of course, in our system, it evolved very distinctly. The You know, even in India, the coming of the the harmonium, the keyboards, has destroyed a lot. Where you know, the new age guys who were in the 18th century, in the 19th century in particular, they began to tell the Indian classicists that they were out of tune, that they had to follow what the harmonium is. So most singers changed their notes. Fortunately, there were enough people who kept at least some sensitivity right. Otherwise, it would have just become a combination of notes rather than the intonation of notes. Melody is not a combination of notes, but it is the intonation of notes, which then gives you a raga. The That's something which, because of the production line, because the instruments became to be produced in mass numbers, and the idea of the keyboard, the scale, I don't know. If I may put it like this, it is important uh, to create music with the perspective that how it should be, how it can be, but there should be some space to protect how it was. So, how it has evolved and how it was perfected,
yeah.
because there was a logic to it. And also, not to think that we are the greatest people ever who lived, but there were also great people who lived in the past. And there's a way to connect with the finest of our ancestors, is to sustain that memory. And memory keeping
Yes.
is a very, very important part of a civilization, which I think has been somehow ignored for some time. Even now, with the global pandemic era, where we are seeing a calamity in India, where we are really bearing the brunt of it now, there were too many people who were brash and this and that. But everybody's is focused now. Everyone is focusing on feeding people. Everybody's focused on providing oxygen, hospitalization. That's important. But people are forgetting that part of the charity, the first 25-30% must be to sustain the memory bearers. That's the civilization that is, that is for tomorrow. So that part of, there's like different responsibilities. One must, have a very comprehensive attitude towards what life is and what priorities are. And it's a pity that in the name of the once the piano and the keyboard comes in, so many of the intonations were somehow lost, and people were commanding this is how it should be, rather than how it was, and understanding,
Yes.
having the scholarship to appreciate that if there is
Yes.
a melody, the intonation is also important. So there is scholarship, but also the absence of scholarship, the faculty that is lost, and we have a dead music, a dead civilization, as if dead. I mean, we make
If I,
our ancestors dumb. We cut their tongues. For me, it is
yeah.
like that big. I wonder if
If I may, if I may put it also in another, from another perspective, what you notice now that the mainstream medias, they want to offer to the audiences great masters from the past, which can be the theater or the music or the great artists like you see on TV series. And then what you see is that they want to make it easy for the wide audience to be able to digest this thing. But this is a paradox, because in today's world we have all the information available now, and we are searching for some experience which is artistic or spiritual, that gives us something more profound. And then we wanted to made it easy, in a sense that the great masters should adapt to our contemporary world, which I found senseless, because if we want to have something different, we have to go there. So, which is exactly the opposite. We have to make the effort. I cannot make Bach music less profound so that the people enjoy it more. If you want to have another emotion, you have to make the effort to go to his music. So it's a very paradox of today, because we want to have everything, even the most profound experiences, but immediately now in my house, and very easy, so without risk. I think in a way today it's a matter of being a kind of a missioner, or making really a resistance to keep preserving inside this heritage that comes from the ancient time, which I mean, of course, maybe I'm off topics, but I think that we have witnessing from the past much higher of what we have today in our world, which is really like very cheap. What we experience most of the time is quite cheap, compared to what we had. I imagine in India is the same. I mean, of course, yeah.
well, that's a big problem. Actually, it is an issue. where everybody, I mean, I as a conservator have faced quite a bit of, I face every day problems where, uh, you are with people, you're sort of dealing with people, and they are quite a lot, because it's easy music. The parameters are so low that just about anybody can be a musician. You can just now go to a factory of music and learn a few things, and you know, technology is accessible. You can cut a record, and you can just post anything on YouTube. No, there's no vetting. There's no, and people are now scoffing at platforms where there are parameters, very very strict parameters. They say, oh, this is elitist. That's like ridiculous. I mean, that wouldn't even be a conversation in just some time back. Um, the where contemporary music is being equated with heritage music or heritage, without thinking, without blinking. If it is old, it's new times. It's times change. Everything changes. But excuse me, who are you? What do you know? Change. They just borrow or steal this rhetoric, hearsay that things change. I mean, what changes? What exactly is the change? Your name, last name doesn't change. If you're a Antonelli, that has remained for quite some time, right? In your family, you will find Antonellis for long. Your body changes, your soul is a new person. First name changes, but not the last name that changes. My mother's last name wouldn't change. I mean, she comes from, you cannot change my mother. So my children's, the die is cast. There are some things that they can, there will be new, but there's something that is not new. Sun, for example, the moon, etc., etc. I mean, people don't realize what they're talking, and how much damage they inflict upon, on heritage, and they lose out on riches. My understanding, I don't know, tell me about how you feel about it. My understanding is that learning um, the heritage, the contemporary creations are only enriched. They are of a better quality. You remove hindsight, you have no foresight, and you have nothing today. I mean, you're now left to invent the wheel all over again. So there is so much. They say, oh, past is past, but you're already using the notes that are from the past. You're using the language that is old. You're writing new poetry, but the language is old. So, how do you see the importance of heritage music? How does it make you as a musician what you are? What does it give you? Does it sort of enrich your your understanding of how to perceive and how to sort of compose and create and even present? How do you see the contribution of heritage music on the contemporary musician?
Well, I must say that I'm very humble, and I have lots of admiration and respect for people who try to write new music, and to kind of be witnessing our age, and to put it into sounds or paintings and whatever. It's not my attitude, it's not my skill. So I put myself very much into the past, and what is fun is that I first fell in love with the music, the full Baroque, and the more I learned about Baroque, then I step a little bit behind to the Renaissance music. And when I fell in love with Renaissance music, then I tried to open another door, even more ancient, and to step into the medieval music. And then it was this big discovery of the ancient music from the East, from the Arabic and the Turkish world. So the more I go back, the more I get fascinating to the most primordial music, which I think the simplest it is, the deeper goes into our soul, in a sense, When I have to compare, for instance, music from a very ancient time, or from, for instance, the East, it's like, for me, the music there, it's like the bricks of our souls. Whereas when I listen to music of, I don't know, Mozart or Beethoven, it's more like the architecture. If you can use this comparison, you see a beautiful architecture, but when you go to the basic primordial music, then you can really feel these bricks with which this building is made of, if I can use this comparison. So to answer to your question, the ancient time, for me, is we still have the feeling and the taste of what makes us more human at the purest sense, at the purest level. No, I don't think it's a coincidence that when you hear a child speaking, he's speaking emotionally, and he's speaking melodically and in a modal way. Because if, for instance, if he's excited, his voice goes up. He goes, "Oh, can you please, let's go there." If he's like, he doesn't get the high screen, then his voice goes down, it goes flat, it goes up. And when you go back to our, primordial music, you feel like we are going back to the voice of the soul. The soul has a voice. Like all the masters in the Oriental world teach. So in that sense, for me, the ancient music is speaking of my roots, but not in a conceptual meaning, in a very real sense, and I think this voice is beyond time and is beyond death and life, because in my belief now, when we make music, we are connecting our soul to the other dimension. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to make music. It doesn't make sense if we don't believe this. If we think that this is just acoustical pleasure, it's absolutely missing the point about. Of course, we are speaking about the music at the most deep sense, because then of course you need music for dancing, you need music for many other let's say more daily needs and daily pleasures. But at the purest level, it connects us to the basic of ourselves, and what the old masters knew, it was this, because they had no no radio, no recordings, nothing. So to make music, it was a moment where you had really like a real experience of a metaphysical reality, you know. I think for them it was quite obvious. What I'm saying is absolutely obvious, I think. So
I like the example that you gave of a child and the mortal aspect. In one of my early researches in the later 80s, I analyzed, and it's a matter of public record, even within the academic field, to do with my tradition. Uh, I saw when I analyzed the music from the 15th and the 16th centuries and early 17th century, uh, I saw that the use of the octave range was very interesting. When it was celebrative, like this is, for example, a 15-beat composition. The first part of the chorus is it's celebrative, and it's almost like an announcement, like saying that, look, I am or I'm in love, kind of a thing. I found my love. And it's in the spiritual sense. I found my master. I've now in the process of being emancipated. So that
yeah,
composition is in Prita Prita Guriya Mohan Lalana. Prita Prita Guriya Mohan Lalana. And then, but to the mind, the second line is talking to the mind, and it comes down because mind is close to you, is within you. And this was like fascinating for me, that within the same composition, when it is I'm in love, I found my love, Preet Preet Guriya, Mohan Lalana. But then, hey mind, engage in, be meditative, be
yeah,
contemplative. But the contemplation and the meditation on only the one Creatore. So, Japaman Govind Eka Avar Nahi Ko Lekha, and then advice Sandalagamana Jad. It's in the middle part of the octave where the advice is being given, that you must
yeah,
be with the saintly, let go of the mind's craziness, mind's wandering. So, Sandalagamana Jad 𝗬𝗶𝗿𝗁𝗂𝗐 Guriya Prita Prita Guriya Mohan Lalana. 15 beats.
yeah,
So or another composition where the advice is given is in the third part of the composition, but it's again always happening in the middle octave. Celebrations happening in the higher side. Conversation with the
yeah.
mind is in the lower side. Something that I see in my analysis of the old music.
It's, you see
Contemporary
the
musicians
problem.
have no idea how to compose. They just take, it's just a melody idea, some borrowing some notes here, and the words have no relationship with the music.
Yeah. But the problem we have in Western music is that we have been writing notation, notes, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, which destroy the music, because if I want to write down with what you just sang, I cannot catch the vocal movement, because I have to write like do, re, do, mi, but only the steps. And there was this Greek teacher who gave me, I think it's interesting for the listeners. He said notation is to the music what steps are to the dance, in the sense that you have a note here, you have a note here, but it's like if you're looking underneath a table, somebody dancing, but you only see the feet. and you see the feet touching there and there, but you cannot see the motion of the whole figure, which is the melodic behavior. And this, in our Western tradition, is lost because we are all the time reading music on the notation, which is like, cutting in pieces the melody.
Yeah, but I think it has to be a combination of both, where the writing, the notation is only for the students who are part of the oral tradition. That these are memory recalls. 20 years later you want to recall because there's a lot of material. There's not enough time in one's life to practice everything that one learns, because there are as conservators, as a conservator, I understand that there is the repertoire. Even if I will never use it, I must learn and then pass on. Maybe somebody else will enjoy another section of that heritage, whereas I was caught up, or I got entangled with one portion of the heritage, one repertoire, one kind of repertoire, because there's a lot. But memory keeping is a different role than consuming from that memory bank, from that treasure chest. Even if I use $50, but I do not throw away the 50 million that I have, from which I'm only using $50 in my life, right? So, but this perspective you don't find in contemporary. There's very few, you come across in your life. I mean, I've come across in the decades I have now lived. Very few people have come across who understand that the responsible part of one's endeavor, or one's doing, one's learning, versus using an ABC part of that heritage.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's have a look at the second video, which I loved, and from the Vivaldi collection. Let's have a look at the second, and then you tell us about what it is on the other side.
District of Venice, where Vivaldi spent his entire life. So the influences of the Greek communities, the Dalmatian communities, the Slavic communities, the Balkanic communities were very strong because he lived his entire life.
According to musicologists, the Venetian music school is marked by the importance of color and timbre, and is a perfect example of this because they always tried and experimented with instruments and sound of all kind.
Okay, that was this is more the introduction part of it. It was just introducing your album, is it?
Yeah, it's the promo of our last album, all about Vivaldi and these insights about the Venetian atmospheres. So, and the other man that we saw in the video is a professor for ethnomusicology at the University of Venice. So he's very much an expert of this heritage of the ancient Venetian masters. So yeah, this is our last, which is available on Spotify, on all the platforms, all the streams. Yes. So this was our last adventure. Yeah, it was made actually during the pandemic. It was because we had a break last summer where we were all back to life in a way, and so we were able to record this album. So there was a moment of the people was so excited about being able to play together again that they were putting all their energy and fantasy in it. It's yeah.
That's wonderful. And what is music to you? Why music?
Why I'm a musician?
Yeah, what is music to you? What do you think is music?
Well, for me personally, it was always, I mean, the way that my door to access music is always music as the sound of a specific place and time. So for me, it's a very beautiful way to travel in time and places, This is the most incredible power that has music, because if you listen to, for me, any kind of music and you close your eyes, you can very much sense what was the life in that specific place in that moment when this music was made. This is the most for me the most fascinating. So in that sense, I don't see music as beautiful music or non-beautiful, or great music or not great, because anyway it's a unique look at a specific place and time. So it's a sacred anyway for me. If you think of, I don't know, flamenco music from south of Spain, you immediately, experience what is that land, that is that life, that culture, that place. And if you listen to a symphony by Mahler, for instance, I travel immediately in the Vienna of the beginning of the 20th century, with a specific taste and spirit of the place where it was made, So this is for me music.
Right.
So in that sense, it's very much connected to the human experience and also to the literature, because it's a fast way of making description. It's a fast description. So it's a direct description in a way.
And
of course, it's also the expression of every specific musician. Of course, but for me, basically, it's this is what makes my imagination flying. So I never liked to speak and to listen to people who say that music is music. No, music for me is something else. It's like music is to art what colors are to painting. You see what I mean? It's just a vehicle. It's just a mean of expression of something that is behind, behind the mean that is used, So I never enjoy music for the music, just as a, pleasure for the ears. For me, it's always like, entering through the music into a world, so for me, it was always my way of feeling the music, yeah.
Well, that's very important. What you said was very, very moving. When you went back in time, what you call the old music, when you went beyond the Renaissance period, can you tell us about what all you found? Who were the composers? What kind of music? And then the other composers from the Renaissance period that interested you. But if you can go back in time when you mentioned about what I saw in your narration and whatever little understanding I have is the further I go, the globes seem to be smaller. But now it has actually become very big because people are too fixated over fixated with their own school, with their own system, and there is not much conversation. But whereas if I go back in time, I see people traveled and they actually listened and they actually spoke and interacted with the world at large. And when you mention about in Italy, when you go back 1,000 years and some even more, you find that the world was larger. The communications were much, much greater and so on. So the influences and the merger, it's almost like the Indian Ocean used to merge with the, with the Atlantic directly, rather than how it is today. We are small pockets now. We think it is, the world is a global village, but we are living in our villages. We have no idea about the globe. Look at even mentality-wise, even tribalism and nativism, which is coming up even in America, in Europe, the so-called extreme right and extreme left kind of mindsets that are there. We are shrunken. Our minds and our hearts are shrunken. They are very narrow now. People had broad hearts, wide hearts and broad minds earlier. Is that how you see music reflected when you went and researched and dug out some of the old stuff?
Well, I have to point out something that was my I realized that we have a kind of distortion about the past. Because for instance, we speak about classical music or we speak about Baroque music, but it's a very, very, very large portion of time of music history. Because if we just think of what it was the repertoire of music from Second World War, from the 50s, you had, I don't see anymore.
Don't worry.
Okay.
I'm here only. Yeah.
Yes. We have, for instance, just speaking about from the end of World War, we had the rock. Then we had, in 50 years time, we had so many styles of music. So in a very short time, we had so many music. And when we look at the past, we're dealing with hundreds of years, because you have the 20th century, you had the 19th century, you had the 18th century, you had the 17th century, then you had the 16th century and back. So it's a huge portion of time, And also the people from France didn't have so much contact with people from Italy because traveling was such a huge distances, for them. In that sense, the variety of music is really huge. And I'm very honest. I'm not expert about any kind of music. It's just that when I look at some program or some project, then I start to get delving into a certain repertoire. I just make an example about this. We decided to realize a program of music of Shakespeare's time, you know, because the whole world knows Shakespeare's theater and literature, but the people don't really know what kind of music he usually used in his plays, you know, in London. It was always with music. You didn't have any theater play without the music. And so we started to search for this these musicians that Shakespeare was surrounded with, and you could see, for instance, it was very interesting because the most way of making music was the song. You know, there were songs. I mean, of course, I'm saying something that you know perfectly, but you could see that the taste of the songs were very much what you have in the British taste for music. Just to give you an example, when at the end of this Shakespeare's program, we perform all this Renaissance music from the Elizabeth time, and as an encore, we performed Hey Jude by the Beatles. And Hey Jude, after listening to so many songs from the Renaissance English time, it was completely natural, you know, because you had the same kind of melodic, you know, kind of taste, you know. So just to say that I usually go for a project where the concert makes sense, in the sense that there is a history, a story behind, you know, a story that I can tell, I can... So we did this with Shakespeare. Then we have realized another project about all the music revolving about Mary of the, you know, the Christian Mary, which is a sacred figure for the Islamic culture. So we collected all the music also from Sufi tradition and from, for instance, the medieval Spanish music dedicated to Mary. So I go more by projects where I can then make research and find out what's, you know, what is there, you know. So it's a very large, because as I said, we're dealing with centuries, you know, many centuries of music, yeah. So it's a very huge world.
I see. And how do you see the Renaissance period, music of the Renaissance period?
Well, you have a very different, because when we say Renaissance, I mean...
it's early and later, no? Early Renaissance and...
Yes, but Renaissance is more a cultural movement rather than a specific era. Because at the time when, for instance, in Italy you had Renaissance, in Germany you had wars and pest, you know. So we have very different situations according to the place where you are. So Renaissance in Italy, it's also kind of strange because, well, Renaissance in Italy is related to the taste for a kind of art that was very much watching the classical Greece. So to be more laical in that sense, you know, to get rid of the restrictions of the church And so you had much more, like in a way, very much human-focused production of music and art, whereas before it was always religious music, Right. So if it's and it's also, we can talk about when this has started. For me, this has started specifically at the end of 16th century. Mm-hmm. So beginning the 17th century in Florence, you had the birth of the so-called opera. The opera, which was describing some kind of personal problems where you didn't have anything like that before, So this was the moment where the whole, let's say, Renaissance period started, But this doesn't coincide with the figurative arts, because that is situated a little bit earlier than that, So it's more full of the 16th century, yeah.
I see.
So it's,
who are the composers that somehow fascinate you at the times, and whose works have somehow remained? Because a lot of music was lost as well from that era.
Yeah, and much music is still hidden in the archives, There are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of manuscripts of music that will probably never be played ever again, because it's so huge, the amount of that music, But of course, there are minor personalities, and that there are major personalities. For instance, Monteverdi, you can call it maybe one of the greatest Italian composers of all time, But next to him was, for instance, Giulio Caccini. Giulio Caccini was a Roman cantor from the Sixtine Chapel. He was active in the St. Peter's Basilica, and then he moved to Florence, and from there he was the one who started this opera story that I was speaking about before. And so many others, which today, I'm not speaking about the audience in India, but even today in Italy, most of the people don't know any more about these people, So, and in that time, Italy itself was made out of many different states. So, it was not a unified nation. It was more like, in itself, it was divided into different states. Mm-hmm. And so you had different music schools. You had the Roman music school, you had the Venetian music school, you have the Florentine music school, you had the Mantova, Modena, each with her court and with his school of music, with different taste, Then we dedicated another CD, for instance, which is was a very good work we did. We dedicated to Corelli, and Corelli was another one of the major figures of the Baroque era in Italy, and we dedicated a CD to his music, but also to all the minor composers, where he was stealing a little bit of his style and language, So we made Corelli and his contemporaries, which is fascinating for us. But for instance, I think maybe because we are in Italy, here, when you're here, I think everywhere when you're in the place, you kind of tend to appreciate more the local culture in a way, yeah. So
that's true.
But I must say that even minor composers wrote really amazing music, Beauty was spread everywhere. Beauty was in the air. You know, they were living with this sense of beauty. It was very deep in their blood, you know. So that is, yeah.
That's wonderful. And your own learning. Why the? I mean, you play multiple instruments.
Yeah.
Took you to the Baroque cello, the 5-string cello. Why that instrument?
Well, I am formerly a modern cellist, so
Yeah.
cello is my native academic instrument I come from. But then when you get into, and I think this is another common feature with the Eastern culture, when you get into the Baroque music, you lose this obligation of playing a certain music on a specific instrument. Like you can't imagine of playing Beethoven a violin concerto on a clarinet, let's say, you know, because people will kill you, you know. But in the Baroque time, it was not important at all, because basically the music was conceived according to the range of the vocal physiology of the singers, right? So you had a bass voice, you had a tenor voice, you have the alto, you know, mezzo, and then soprano. And basically you had like 5 main registers, you know, and all the instruments were built according to play along with their respective voice. And therefore, you had a much bigger variety of instruments, of shapes. It was not fixed, you know, like you had really all kinds of measures, number of strings, tuning system. It was completely, the more I get researching into this, and the more I see that it was really, it was a completely fluid, you know, it was and it's fascinating because it is a history of music in itself, the history of the instrument making, you know. That was, and so I got, I wanted to play also like small instruments to play faster music, or to play like more higher melodies and so on. So I started to get you know, to experiment and to try different kind of instruments. But it's always basically I only play string bowing instruments, you know. So, and therefore, for instance, the violoncello piccolo 5 strings was much in use before it became the standard cello with 4 strings, you know. So it was like you can call it also a bass violin, you know.
Yes. And it's about the strings that you mentioned, about the 5 strings. Again, it's to do with the vocal range. Is that right?
Yeah, this was a moment of transition from the viola da gamba. Viola da gamba, it was it had 7 strings. It was very much in use in France, not as much in Italy. It's not typically of the Italian, but nevertheless, the 5 strings cello, it's a kind of a way between the viola da gamba and the cello. So you can play a higher range of, you know, because it goes from the bass string of the cello up to, it has 1/5 higher, so you can play, I used to play also transcriptions of violin sonatas and much of the repertoire, just playing an octave lower, because then with the cello with 5 strings, you have the tuning of the violin an octave lower, so which makes it like a bass violin, a big violin, yeah.
Right.
So it's very much fun, it's very much fun to play that instrument, yeah.
Yeah. And also the size. I mean, when you look at the size of the instruments change. So how difficult or easy is it for you to adapt to that?
I mean, once you use, I remember at first it was more difficult, but then it becomes kind of natural to change instrument even in the same concert, because it's what they used to do all the time, in that time, all the people played more than just one instrument, so it was very, very common. And it's a matter of getting used, you get used to also read in different keys, different range, it's all a matter of getting used to it, so. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah, of course.
I see. I don't know how I was muted. Um, uh, that's very strange. I did not even mute myself. So I was saying, thanks, Ramanjeet, for that. Don't change your computer for me.
Okay.
Uh, I was about to give you a surprise, you all a surprise. I mean, you would have seen that I was busy with the phone. I've been actually trying to locate the video files from 2019, I think May of 2019, to be precise. Actually, August 10th, 2019, at a very ancient temple where me and Jeff and we all got together. We had a wonderful pizza lunch, and then we went and listened to some music by them. So I dug out, I found, because I had to download from the iCloud. I was like struggling. I said, "Come on now, do it quick." So
Yeah.
here is a the video that I shot at the time. Can you?
Thank you.
Can you
Bye. Thank you. Thank you.
tell us about this work that you did with your friends?
Well, this was a project about Ottoman music, and this piece was by 𝗬ᵐηδ Idri, which was one of the great Sufi composers. We're speaking about 17th century in the Ottoman Empire, and this was a beste, which means like a song in Ottoman language, which is even different from the Turkish, so we could never be able to translate the text because it's very difficult to get the meaning, but it's a beautiful piece of pure Sufi music, you know. So it's a religious traditional music from the Ottoman period. Yeah.
I see.
Buzelik is one of the scales in the Ottoman makam, you know. So it's music. E3 has been considered a little bit like a Bach of the Ottoman music. Indeed, the UNESCO dedicated a year, I think in 2013, to E3. So it's considered one of the great composers of the Ottoman music. Yeah. And the singer is a Greek, very good musician, Christos Barbas, and no.
And the other musicians, you want to introduce to the other musicians as well?
Yes, the oud player is Pepe Frana, which I'm sure you know.
It's a dear friend of mine, yes.
Yes. He's a great musician, really. And then next to him, it's friend playing the viola da gamba. His name is Gianni Lamarca, and he's active as a gamba player. And the girl sitting in the very center is Herzi Matmuja. She's an Albanian singer. And later in the concert, she sang Albanian traditional music, which is also very interesting. Yeah.
Right.
But this is my side job, in the sense that this is dedicated to the Eastern music, which is not my main core business, because I'm into my Western tradition most of the time, which is where I feel more at home, in a sense. Yeah.
Right. And which is the other big instrument on the right side? There's something larger than the cello. About that instrument,
that is the viola da gamba. That is a gamba with sympathetic strings, you know. So it's a big viola d'amore, because viola d'amore in Italy is a string with a sympathetic resonating strings, you know.
Right.
So, yeah. So this was a very special night. Yeah, it was a special place, and really, this for people who don't know, this place is a temple just above the sea, like the Acropolis, you know, in Greece. So it was a Roman temple just overlooking the sea. Yeah.
And here is another one that I would like to share.
Sperne
Wow, that was that was that was wonderful.
Thank you.
I had no idea when I shot it in August 2019 that 2 years later, almost 2 years later, we will be meeting in COVID-19 global pandemic times, that I'll be digging out from my phone some of the videos I
Yeah,
took while sitting there,
yeah.
and we get
Thank you.
to work. Tell us about this piece as well. I mean, beautiful stitches.
This,
I will have to invite 𝗬𝗏𝗁𝗁 also. We've kept in touch ever since.
yeah.
Tell us about this piece as well.
This is a traditional song from the Greek islands. I think from some of the islands, which I can't remember exactly the name, is from the repertoire of the 𝗕𝗶𝗊𝗁𝗁, you know. 𝗕𝗶𝗊𝗁𝗁, it's kind of popular music in the traditional music of Greece. Yeah, it's a Greek song. Yeah,
I see.
it's a 9/8 beats, so 9/8.
9/8.
Yeah,
That's fantastic. So there's a lot of usage of tal structures like that, huh? Different rhythmic patterns, is it?
what?
It's quite an intricate system. They use 9 also.
Yeah. But typical in Greek and Turkish repertoire. Yeah.
I see. Is it like I heard about some of the Greek music where they would use within a single composition multiple rhythms?
Yes. But personally, I don't have big experience about Greek music, which is still something very specific, different from Turkish music. What I like and what I've been a little bit exploring more is the classical Ottoman music, because it has a noblesse that is in a way similar to our, let's say, Bach's music. You know, it's a spiritual music. It's deep. Greek, I discovered being a huge world, because every different place in Greece has its traditional music. You know, being land spread all on the many islands. You know, every island has its own repertoire. So it's not in my knowledge in a way. Yeah.
We use, in my tradition, the Gurbani Sangeet, which is older than the contemporary Hindustani Sangeet and Carnatic Sangeet, and nearly forgotten a system of South Asia, which I've somehow been able to. I wouldn't want to call that I've been fortunate to revive it. I wish I did not have to revive it from extinction to pioneer the revival.
Yeah.
Because I wish it had still kept, it had been alive and thriving, then
Yeah.
I would have kept myself busy with the aircrafts and spaceships that I was wanting to be busy with. But we use a lot of 9, like there's one 9-beat composition that comes to my mind right now is in Rag 𝗵𝗏𝗏. 𝗵𝗏𝗏 is a scale which corresponds to the major scale, I think, with the 4th note flat. The rest all are sharp notes. It goes like 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁𝗏 my voice is all dead. It goes like this. Sant Pai Gur Sat Gur Pure, Sant Pai Gur Sat Gur Pure, Sant Pa. It's 9-beat structure, and it starts with the 9th beat and comes onto the 1st beat, and the full chorus is like this, and the stanza. In spite of my dead voice, I'll try to hum it for you all. Sad Pai Gur Sat Gur Pure, Sukh 𝗶𝗿𝗁 Dure, Sad Pai Gur Sat Gur Pure, ताप पाप संताप विनाशे, हार सिमरत खेल बेख सब नासे, खेल बेख सब नासे, संत पाई गुर सत गुर पूरे सत पा. This is a 9-beat structure, for example, but this is a fast tempo 9-beat. Then we have slow tempo 9 beats, 9, 11, 13, like that, 15, 17, 19, there's a 21, the odd number, they start from 5, 7, 9 onwards. Of course, 3 we have already spoken about, from a single beat to 3 to 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 17, 19, 21, 23, 25, 27, 29, 31, 33. We have fantastic structures like that. They're called savari, Charles, almost like a ride. Did you find in the Ottoman repertoire that you were talking about, 9 and 8, or the Greek, do they use things like that? Did you come across compositions like that, or rhythmic scales like that?
Classical Ottoman music has quite simple, let's say, rhythmical structures. Usually it's either 10 or 5 beats, but what you have this level of complexities in the Arabic music, I think, because but what is, as far as I know, it's related to the accents of the language, because Arabic has a very let's say complex accents in the language. And for the same reason that in Italian music you have a quite simple rhythm, because the accentuation of Italian language is quite simple in a way. So I think it's very much related to the language in a sense.
Right. And I have third piece. I did, I think, 3 or 4. I'm trying to download the 4th one as well. And let's have a look at the next one.
𝗔𝗿𝗄𝗎
That was an amazing solo in between of yours as well.
Thank you. I love this piece. I love it. I love it. I wrote because we have only the melody of this piece, so I kind of made all the score, you know, for the many instruments, and I wrote the solo and everything, you know. So, and it's a French. It's a French music from Middle Age, you know, 𝗬𝗶𝗿𝗁𝗔. So it's I like very much this music. Yeah, this is more still in the medieval repertoire, you know. So it's very ancient. It's something like 14th century. Yeah.
Right. And this, tell us more. I mean, how was the process? How did you choose, and what all? I mean, how did you work on it?
This is a part of this project I was mentioning before about music dedicated to Mary of Nazareth, I mean the Virgin Mary.
Right.
And this piece is one of those because the title is Douce Dame Jolie, which is a sweet, beautiful lady. Which is dedicated to the Virgin Mary, and it's a beautiful 𝗕ᵉ𝗿, which is the form of the song, medieval song. So it was within the repertoire for the Virgin Mary in different traditions. You know, we had from the Sufi, from Spain, from the Balkanic area. So we have, you know, it was a variety of music, all focused on this magic female figure, you know.
I see.
The project is titled Alba Mariam, because Mariam was its name in the Arabic. So I don't know if you have a Maria or something like that in the Indian names.
Yeah, Maria is there in Indian name. My wife's name.
Okay. Great. But she's Italian, if I'm not.
Just kidding.
So she was born. Yeah, she was born in Italy. Yeah. And
that is true. Yeah. But this is quite a fantastic work. Compliments, really. So, what all? I mean, you mentioned that you wrote parts of it, right? Or you mentioned about this piece that you just had the melody and then you wrote on it.
Yes, because to make it more rich with the harmony, you know, we have this problem all the time of not playing everybody the same melody, you know, which now I find out it is much more beautiful to play everybody the same melody. Right. But we have to make a kind of harmonic, more rich sound. So I made it a little bit more complex, you know.
Right.
But still, because the melody is always the same, you know, this typical form of this song is always the same melody that keeps repeating, you know. It's very much in the structure. So.
Right.
It's always the same, you know. So. But I love it. It's, I don't know, when I listen to this piece, it's just you're just hypnotizing. You know?
Quite a piece, actually. It was quite fantastic, quite fascinating. So I've managed to download also the 4th video. I did 4 videos. I've got the 4th one also queued up. let's have a look at it.
Yeah. So
that was fantastic. Also, that was the last piece that I had.
yeah, this was the Albanian traditional song. So this was Albanian music, which is not very common to listen to, no?
Yeah, and that using of that single tone, tong tong, that was quite the plucking on the instrument was very.
Yeah, because there's this character of like, shepherds from Albanian mountains, you
I
know.
see. I
So
see. And this
it's
is,
a
I
very
also found,
trusted.
I think I was carrying my camera. I took this photo uh,
Yeah,
then.
beautiful one.
uh,
Very beautiful.
yeah,
Nice. Thank you.
close up of you guys. You know, you're there and Hersey on the everybody there. This vocalist, quite a guy. The drummer, quite a fantastic talent. Also,
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks. Hey, they're wonderful musicians. I'm very lucky, you know, because I put together good musicians, which is a good trick to make projects function well. Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
That is always the best way to have good colleagues. If you have good people, uh, uh,
Yeah.
it's always fun to create something nice. But thank you so much for taking time out. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to maybe our conversation in a few weeks or days when you have some of your babies with you. It'll be great to have a closer look at the instruments that you have spent time
Okay.
practicing.
With pleasure. With pleasure. Yeah. So thank you so much because I have a great admiration for. I was in India once, only once. I was in India, and for me, it's a holy land. So thank you to give me the opportunity to to get in touch with this fantastic culture. So and thank you to your audience to listen to our conversation. Yeah.
Pleasure. Thank
So
you. Best wishes. Take care, and I hope to see you soon. Live, but of course,
thank you,
in conversation.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Ciao. Bye. Ciao.
Anyhow.
Greetings from Italy. Ciao. Ciao. Ciao.
So, friends, that was my conversation with Giordano Antonelli, and I hope that you enjoyed that as much as I did. And a couple of notes about tomorrow. I was to have a session with Punjabi folk music icon 𝗕𝗶𝗁𝗫, but she's unwell and Glory, they're all down with simple viral, I'm told. So it's going to be postponed by a few days. I'll keep you all informed. But I hope that you enjoyed the conversation with Giordano. Do kindly share in your circles, respective groups, this conversation. And if you would like to follow my work, join me on Patreon. You can search with YaarAnād there and start supporting if you would like. Become partners in the conservation projects that Anād Foundation continues to do. In spite of the circumstances. It's a 24/7 work. We don't have time to even blink. Recovery of heritage, its consolidation analysis, and then to leave it, with its pedagogy intact for the coming generations is very, very important. And I'll see you soon with the next session. Whenever 𝗕𝗶𝗁𝗫 and others are feeling a little more strong. दोस्तों ते मेरे जानी दुश्मनों, आप जी ने समा कढ़िया, आज तुसी जुड़े हो, बड़ी बड़ी मेहरबानी। कहर दा वेला है, हिंदुस्तान में अगे कई बार सावधानी चेतावनी देती सीगी कि बाज आ जाओ, नहीं तां हस्पतालां विच डॉक्टर ते नर्स भी नहीं मिलने। ਇਹ ਸੱਚ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੋਚਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਆਕਸੀਜਨ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਇੰਨੀ ਘਾਟ ਹੋ ਜਾਏਗੀ ਕਿ ਸਾਹ ਲੈਣਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਸੰਭਵ ਨਾ ਹੋਏਗਾ। ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਆਸਾਨ ਤਰੀਕਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਮਿਟੀਗੇਸ਼ਨ ਦਾ, ਵਾਇਰਸ ਨੂੰ ਦੂਰ ਰੱਖਣ ਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਸੰਜਮ ਵਰਤੋ, ਮਿਲੋ ਗਿਲੋ ਨਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਰਿਸ਼ਤੇਦਾਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ, ਆਪਣੇ ਦੋਸਤਾਂ ਯਾਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ। ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਤਾਂ ਵੈਸੇ ਦਿੱਲੀ 'ਚ ਕਰਫਿਊ ਲੱਗਿਆ, ਪਰ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਲੋਕ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਵੀ ਉਲੰਘਣਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ, ਔਰ ਕਈਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੱਡੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੰਗੀਤਕਾਰ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਕਈ ਚਲੇ ਗਏ ਕੋਵਿਡ ਮੁਲਾਕਾਤਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਕਈਆਂ ਨੂੰ, ਕਈ ਸਿਰਫ ਬਿਮਾਰ ਰਹੇ ਤੇ ਠੀਕ ਨੇ, ਸ਼ੁਕਰ ਹੈ ਰੱਬ ਦਾ। ਪਰ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਆਸਾਨ ਇਲਾਜ ਹੈਗਾ ਮਿਟੀਗੇਸ਼ਨ ਦਾ, ਯਾਨੀ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਵਕਫਾ ਪਾ ਦਿਓ। ਵਾਇਰਸ ਆਪ ਉੜ ਕੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਂਦਾ, ਉਹ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੇ ਚਿੰਬੜੋਗੇ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਚਿੰਬੜਦਾ ਉਹ। ਅਤੇ ਇਹ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਇਹਤਿਆਤ ਵਰਤਣ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੈ। ਇਹ ਘੜੀ ਬੜੀ ਔਖੀ ਹੈ। ਮੈਂ ਆਸ ਕਰਦਾ, ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰਦਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਲਈ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਚੇਤਾਵਨੀ ਰੱਖੋਗੇ, ਸਾਵਧਾਨੀ ਰੱਖੋਗੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਜੀਵਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਧਿਆਨ ਰੱਖੋਗੇ, ਸਫਾਈ ਰੱਖੋਗੇ, ਔਰ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਔਖੀ ਘੜੀ ਹੈ ਇਹ ਛੇਤੀ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਕਰ ਦੇਵਾਂਗੇ। ਛੇਤੀ ਮੁਲਾਕਾਤ ਹੋਏਗੀ। ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਮੇਰੀ ਗੁਰਬੀਤ ਬਾਵਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਮੇਲਾ ਸੀ, ਉਹ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੇ ਦਿਨਾਂ ਲਈ ਸਥਗਿਤ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜਾਵੇਗਾ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਹ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਢਿੱਲੇ ਨੇ। ਗਲੋਰੀ ਹੋਣਾ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਵਾਇਰਲ ਵਗੈਰਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਅਤੇ ਕਮਜ਼ੋਰੀ ਮਹਿਸੂਸ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ, ਅਤੇ ਛੇਤੀ ਮੁਲਾਕਾਤ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਤਦ ਤਾਈਂ ਲਈ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਤੋਂ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ ਲੈਣਾ। ਭਾਈ ਬਲਦੀਪ ਸਿੰਘ, ਸਤਿ ਕਰਤਾਰ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਖੁਦਾ ਹਾਫਿਜ਼। ਵੈਰੀ ਗੁੱਡ ਨਾਈਟ।